call the meeting to order. Can I get a roll call, please?
No, that's okay. Ms. Chiquini? Here. Superintendent not here. Mr. Wall-Malfite? Here. Mr. Giuliano's not here. Mr. Nuss?
I am here.
Mrs. Stahl?
Here.
Mrs. Whitty?
Here.
Mrs. Zalbari is not here. Mr. D'Agostino?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Would you please join me in the flag salute? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of the Act, the Sussex-Wantage Regional School District Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted in the school building and notice of said meeting sent to the New Jersey Herald and the Star Ledger.
The Sussex-Wantage Regional School District is a responsive, caring, child-centered community. Our mission is to educate each individual to become a confident, competent, lifelong learner and productive, responsible citizen by providing challenging opportunities and a safe environment through a partnership of families, schools, and communities.
Thank you, Mrs. Whitty. At this time, we'll move on to the report of the Superintendent of Schools.
Thank you, Mr. D'Agostino, Mrs. Whitty, members of the Board of Education, audience members. So to give you a little bit of an update, we've been preparing schools for opening. We had our first open house today. It seemed to go very well. The buildings were in good working order. We had curriculum meetings and facility meetings. Curriculum largely to talk about various happenings in the district. Strong assessment coming up. New curriculum guides. We're going to examine the notion of full-time substitute teachers. In facility, a couple of the bigger items. CEL well system, something that I've been briefing the community on for a couple of years now, so that's coming to closure with that project. We just had an extensive water tank, tanker truck hooked up to the back of the building, and that was planned to help facilitate the transition from the old well system to the new well system. So that was up and running, the water pressure was very good. It's probably gonna come in right under the wire on that job. No, it should not anticipate to affect school or the start of school in any way. It's just a changeover in the system may happen, a day or two into the school year, but again, no break in water service anticipated. Seal coating, Mr. Vaughn and his company are seal coating on the Lawrence School playground. They kind of pulled out all the weeds and things like that from the cracks. They're gonna fill those cracks up and then put the seal coat on it before the start of school. Transition of the shared superintendency, just to update you a little bit, both districts, Lafayette, Sussex-Wantage, has been extraordinarily helpful. The Board of Education's really flexible and bending over backwards to try to help. One of the things that's going to come up is, our first day for staff kind of activities, first day for student type activities. So I'm going to divide my time in both those scenarios. We planned out the first day for staff where, I'll be able to be hopefully in two places at once, try to attend all the school's faculty meetings for a little bit of time. I'll probably start my day, first day for students over in Lafayette, just because I don't know that environment, they don't know me as well. And we have 3 great principals leading each building here. If that's okay with the board, and if anybody has any feedback on that, I'm happy to listen to it. Just want to give a special thanks to everybody in the administrative team, the Board of Education, Mrs. Riker, Mrs. Stimolakis, Mrs. Duvall, our transportation coordinator. I know there's always some questions about transportation and concerns. We get a phone call or an email, but the bar that school districts are really setting, as much as we'd love to elevate the bar, because of the challenges with bus drivers, the extreme shortage of bus drivers and things like that. So part of my frame of mind, both districts, is can we provide busing service? So that's kind of the starting point, and we could. Fortunately, Ms. Duvall has come through and helped us out with that tremendously. Mrs. Riker pitched in on that. Mrs. Henyon, our new Director of Special Services, I think is in the back somewhere, just for jumping in quicker than we anticipated, rolling up our sleeves and getting a lot of work done. Mr. Kronsky and his tech team, all the principals, the staff has been in all summer, various points, setting up their classrooms and things like that. Always want to thank SWIA, Lisa Fahrenfeld, their Vice President, Getta Baker, who always are very collaborative with me, so I appreciate that. Some other important things just to make you aware of, parents got this notice in their email. So just, we continue to use real time, that's our student management system. We go in, you sign all the authorizations for kids, permission slips, things of that nature. Before you get access to who your child's teacher is for the year, we ask that you complete those. It won't let you pass that part of the system. Again, our first open house was today, seemed to go very well. Our next one's Tuesday, August 30th, 9 to 12 also. So you get to kind of meet and greet the principals, new director of special services. Free and reduced breakfast and lunch, just so you're aware, I mean, during the COVID experience, that was all provided free from the government to everyone now. People will have to go back into qualifying for that, so we emailed that out to the community. It's on our website too. You have to complete an application process. COVID procedures, basically, without getting into an enormous amount of detail, we're trying to largely have as normal a school year as possible, pre-COVID type scenarios. A lot of the board has been very passionate about advocating for bringing back all the kinds of things that we used to do before COVID, family functions, family math nights, family week reading nights. If we can get things like learning circus back, we love to do all those things, so we're planning on all those things. We ask that you keep your child home if they're sick, call in the nurse, let us know until symptoms resolve. Report cards, another goal of the board is to try to bring it back a little old school, so things like lunch menus, newsletters, report cards they'd like to see come home in hard copy. So you're more inclined maybe to talk to your child about how they're doing in school and that kind of thing. Continue to offer the before and after care program. If you'd like to be involved with that, you need those services, please reach out to Mrs. Card or Mrs. Longo over at the Wantage School and they can set you up. Some important dates, again, August 30th to the next parent-student open house, September 6th, first day for students. Week of September 12th for those parents who have children in grades 4 through 8, we'll be doing the New Jersey Start Strong assessment. Mrs. Dimolakis and the tech team have been working diligently to plan that out, so we appreciate that. Our back to school nights, again, you don't have to remember this, this is the notification that everyone got. September 1st, Mrs. Dimolakis and CEL are going to host their first preschool and kindergarten back to school night. That's before school starts, that's to kind of get those kindergarten students, parents acclimated to the notion of coming to school. September 14th is back to school night for CEL grades 1 and 2. September 21st is back to school night for Sussex Middle School, and September 28th is back to school night for West. And that's all I have for this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Dahl. At this time, we will move on to audience remarks. Members of the audience are invited to make brief comments about items on this agenda and matters of interest to the district. Are there any audience remarks? Seeing none, we will move on to the board secretary certification.
Pursuant to NJAC 6A 23A-16.10C3, I certify that as of July 31st, 2022, no line item account has encumbrances and expenditures which in total exceed the line item appropriation in violation of NJAC 6A 23A-16.10A.
Thank you, Mrs. Riker. We'll move on to the approval of board minutes for July 28th, 2022. Regular and executive sessions, both the first and the second executive sessions. Can I get a motion, please?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on the approval of board minutes? All right, roll call, please.
Mr. Nuss?
Yes.
Mrs. Stahl?
Yes.
Mrs. Cicchini?
Abstain.
Ms. Malafite?
Abstain.
Mrs. Whitty?
Yes.
Mr. D'Agostino?
Yes.
Minutes are approved.
All right, we are going to go into a brief executive session on agenda items. How long is it?
15, 20 minutes.
15 or 20 minutes. We'll hold them to that also. So
I'm not the one who.
Can I just get a resolution, please, Mrs. Wright?
Whereas pursuant to NJSA 10-4-12B, the Sussex-Wantage Regional Board of Education may exclude the public from that portion of a public meeting at which the board discusses any of the matters described in NJSA 10-4-12B through 1 through 9. Now therefore be resolved that the Sussex-Wantage Regional Board of Education shall enter into closed session to discuss personnel matters. Now therefore be it further resolved by the Sussex Wantage Regional Board of Education that pursuant to NJSA 10:4-13B, the time when and circumstances under which the discussion conducted in closed session can be disclosed to the public is when the need for confidentiality no longer exists.
Thank you. Looking for a motion to enter executive session.
Make the motion.
Looking for a second, please.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? in public session. I apologize, it took about 10 minutes longer than we thought. Mr. Gall didn't stop talking. At this time, we will move on to the presentation of agenda items.
Thank you, Mr. D'Agostino. Under personnel, I'd like to move items 1 through 16.
Looking for a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Looking for a second? Thank you. Any discussion on personnel? Roll call, please.
Mr. Nuss?
Yes.
Ms. Noel Malafay? Mrs. Chikini?
Yeah.
Mrs. Stoll?
Yes.
Mrs. Whitty?
Yes.
Mr. D'Agostino?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Under policy, I'd like to move items 1 and 2.
Make a motion.
Thank you. Looking for a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any discussion on policy? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Stoll?
Yes.
Mr. Nuss?
Yes.
Mrs. Chikini?
Yeah.
Ms. Noel Malafay?
Yes.
Mrs. Whitty?
Yes.
Mr. D'Agostino?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Under finance, I'd like to move items 1 through 15.
Looking for a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. For a second? Thank you. Any discussion on finance? Roll call, please.
Mr. Nuss?
Yes.
Mrs. Stoll?
Yes.
Mrs. Chikini?
Yes.
Ms. Noel Malafay?
Yes.
Mrs. Whitty?
Yes.
Mr. D'Agostino?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Under special services, I'd like to move item number 1.
Motion.
I'll motion.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any discussion on special services? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Stoll?
Yes.
Mr. Nuss?
Yes.
Mrs. Chikini?
Yes.
Ms. Noel Malafay?
Yes.
Mrs. Whitty?
Yes.
Mr. D'Agostino?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Under curriculum, I'd like to move items 1 through 8.
I'll motion.
Thank you. For a second.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion on curriculum? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Stoll?
Yes.
Ms. Noel Malafay?
Yes.
Mrs. Chikini?
Yes.
Mr. Nuss?
Yes.
Mrs. Whitty?
Yes.
Mr. D'Agostino?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Referring to the addendum under personnel, I'd like to move items 1 through 13.
Looking for a motion, please.
I'll make that.
Thank you. Looking for a second.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion on personnel on the addendum? Roll call, please.
Mr. Nuss?
Yes.
Ms. Noel Malafay?
Yes.
Ms. Chikini?
Yes.
Mrs. Stoll?
Yes.
Mrs. Whitty?
Yes.
Mr. D'Agostino?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Under policy on the addendum, I'd like to move items number 1 and 2.
I'll motion.
Thank you. Looking for a second.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any discussion on policy on the addendum? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Stoll?
Yes.
Mr. Nuss?
Yes.
Mrs. Chikini?
Yes.
Ms. Noel Malafay?
Yes.
Mrs. Whitty?
Yes.
Mr. D'Agostino?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Under finance, referring to the addendum, I'd like to move items 1 and 2.
I'll leave.
Thank you. Looking for a second.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Noel Malafay?
Yes.
Mr. Nuss?
Yes.
Mrs. Chikini?
Yes.
Mrs. Stoll?
Yes.
Mrs. Whitty?
Yes.
Mr. D'Agostino?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, at this time, we will move on to unfinished business. Does anyone on the board have any unfinished business they would like to discuss?
I'll start. First, I have to apologize. I forgot to take my hat off again, second time during the flag salute. So if anyone who sees it, if I'm wearing a hat, please feel free to remind me. I apologize for that.
I think I'm the only one that should be wearing
No, I'm not too far behind you. Far behind you. I do have a quick question, and I think you answered it, but do all of the kids listen to, or do they all participate in the Pledge of Allegiance over the PAs? Do we know?
Yeah, I mean, definitely Lawrence and Wantage, only because I was operating there. We do the flag salute. I believe it's done here too. Yes.
Yes.
Yep, all three.
Okay. So here, I got a call yesterday, and then again today, from a person who wants to remain anonymous, but they asked me what was going on with the unemployment situation And I said.
Oh, that's like an angle like this, you came in with
I
that
did.
question.
I totally surprised you. And I said, you wanna know something? I said, I bring it up at every meeting and we still haven't heard anything. And then their next response was, well, what are you doing about that? And I said, well, you know what, I'll ask. So I know we reached out to Hal. There's gotta be somebody that's gonna, I mean, we're, what is it, 2 years now? It's 2 years, right?
It's over
Over
2 years
2
since
years.
my first letter.
Since your first letter. When was our last letter? Roughly.
I don't know. The attorneys wrote a letter and then I received subsequent ones that every time I get an unemployment
Mhm.
bill, they come quarterly. If there's somebody that I dispute, I write a certified letter now and dispute it.
That's an ongoing process.
Yes.
Yeah.
The last bill I received, it was,
And is the balance still at like 130, 140? Did you remember where it was?
yeah, it still, it goes up because there are some legitimate claims that come up time to time, but I have not paid the bill
Right.
for
Right.
the ones that we are disputing.
Let me ask you, I mean, would you feel better if we followed up with an additional letter to somebody?
Well, you know what? I said I would bring up their concern and they
Yeah.
would see it at the meeting if they're watching.
Yeah, I mean, I will
So,
certainly do that,
yeah.
I don't know, you know, the unfortunate reality is this is what we met with.
Yeah, I just checked on the email, cause I remember we received an email from our assemblyman, and he had said that he reached out to the assistant commissioner of unemployment, and that was April 1st. And I know we sent all the information to them, that was almost 5 months ago.
Yeah.
So we need to, follow up again.
Have we gotten any penalties or interest on the bills that you're not paying? Nothing?
Not that I'm aware of. The bills are,
Right.
they come and there's so much time, I review them and we're supposed to pay them and I have not paid them.
Right, but it's been a while, I mean, eventually you would think there'd be penalties and interest.
Well, I
and then you
hope
gotta-
what I hope is somebody calls me and says, how come you haven't paid, and then I
Right.
actually have a
Right.
person, but that has not happened. And there was no response to the letter that the attorney sent out either, which, probably carried a little more weight than my letters.
You would think.
Okay. Well, thank you. Let's do something on this. So, and then I wanna say thank you, it's old business, but we're not gonna have CNN in our schools officially, right? Okay,
It's not in
so,
the curriculum.
thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nuss. Is there any other unfinished business from
Good, I think we're good right now.
Okay. Anybody else on the board have any unfinished business? All right, we'll move on to new business. Does anyone have any new business they would like to discuss?
I just wanna get the take on, one of my, passions I'd love to provide full day free pre-K to the community. Just get the board's take on that, you probably hear about other districts winning grants that are awarded to them, and being able to offer that, so grants are very, kind of what if and contingent upon a lot of things, but I just want you to know that we've been exploring different angles over a couple of years to try to do something like that. Again, contingent upon grants, so it's like a bunch of what ifs. But more recently in the curriculum committee meeting, we had a discussion about it, and everybody's trying to put their brains together to come up with a rationale. So if we're gonna apply for that grant for next year, if it's still offered, we would have to work diligently to come up with all the ins and the outs of that, we applied for it previously several years ago and we're not awarded the grant. Our understanding was that, the pitch we were making was to try to start small, and the state was more along the lines of like, you need to provide it for everybody who we anticipate in the community, which at the time was probably like 180 to 200 kids. So to give you an idea, the schools kind of have a 350, 400 population, so you need facility space to do that. With facility space comes all requirements, especially for kids on that age level, and there's a cap on the size of the classroom, which I think is 15. So long story short, if we were gonna do something like that, we may, and I don't want anybody in the community to start panicking or anything like that, but we'd have to free up space for that kind of thing in our grant proposal. So something like that might involve moving different grade levels around the district, so you might have to convert Lawrence School from pre-K to 2 to, a pre-K kindergarten building or pre-K to 1 building and move the other kids up to Wantage and then take kids from Wantage and move them up to a wing in the middle school, that kind of thing. Again, don't wanna panic anybody, don't want teachers thinking that they're getting transferred. This is brainstorming for a year out, just to plant a seed about how we would achieve something like that. And I just wanna give credit to Mrs. Zilbari, who couldn't be with us tonight, that arranged a tour of the old hospital in Sussex. Actually, one of Mr. Terwilliger's ideas when I was brainstorming with him was, hey, if they give us that building for free, maybe we could do something with it. So I happened to mention that during the curriculum meeting, and she kind of really took the reins and ran with that, and got us a tour there. And it turns out that the facility wouldn't meet our needs. It's so massive, and things that would be involved in that, it just wasn't going to work. But we appreciated her arranging that, and I'd love to hear your feedback on that kind of thing. And maybe we do a subcommittee or an ad hoc committee to kind of start thinking about that. Because those kinds of infrastructure moves would be, significant in the district. And there's other hurdles that, we don't really have control over sometimes, like transportation requirements, and we have a hard time getting bus routes now, so I can't imagine that. But if that's something we wanna work towards, then we have to start brainstorming it now. So I don't know if anybody has any feelings about that. So, and to give you an idea, I grew up and taught in what was formerly called an Abbott School District. And they've had full day free pre-K funded by the state probably now for 20 years. So places like Garfield, Patterson, Newark, we were grouped there. And they came into my hometown and they just started acquiring facilities and building brand new buildings. And people I'm friends with down there still look at that and they can see the benefits that it reaped academically, socially, what it would do for a community in the sense of, that frees up a parent's care expenses or time, and you can enhance your own life, get more education, expand your job opportunities, all those kinds of things. It has the potential to have a huge impact. I'm sorry.
No, sir, you want to first? So if you were to get this funded by a grant, first question is, say you got the grant and you were lucky to get it for 2 or 3 years.
Thereby, what happens at the end of that?
Wow, my point is also now you have people that you've given 10 years in, or 4 years, whatever it is, if you're that lucky.
Yeah.
And then you don't get the grant.
Yeah.
How is the district then stuck?
Yeah,
How
all
is that
great
situation?
nuts and bolts questions that I wouldn't even have begun to think about. Seniority, certification, pre-K, it's a different certification. Yeah, or if you had to, again, don't, totally brainstorm conversation. What we see in the county is more along the lines of the little one school town infrastructures, getting one classroom on board. So you're looking at one teacher, maybe one TA. It's not a huge, but our population so much more perceived to be so much more significant, where you're potentially trying to service, well over 150 potential students, that it's a bigger operation. Yeah, they're not, some of my friends who are superintendents in other districts didn't really have to go crazy trying to find transportation. They already have a bus or two that they, space on. But again, it's almost a whole other school, a whole wing of the school, or again, moving classrooms around.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, so is it required to provide transportation for preschool?
Based upon my last experience with that grant process, which was 2 or 3 years ago, it would have been.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like even offering it for parents that maybe would wanna pay to keep their kids in the district versus like sending them to
Okay,
daycare.
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I don't know how many parents would do that, but a lot of parents are paying for daycare, so I feel like they'd rather start with the district earlier to get acclimated with, kids that are gonna be
I
going
like
to
that.
school with, just a thought.
Yeah, no, it's great though.
Well, I like
But
the.
how would you do that? I'm just
So some of the
curious.
schools, you have to pay, it's not free, like some of the
Yeah.
districts that don't have the
Right.
grants.
But would people still be able to qualify if they couldn't
For
afford
free?
to send it? Because then you're gonna have
Not
to
unless you got the
paying.
grant. Oh, what do you mean,
So
like,
I'm just saying you're gonna have, if you
like
had, if you
handicap
offered it,
people?
yeah, I'm just saying if you had people, if you offered it.
Well, I can explore that idea and come back to the
Addition.
table with that, yeah.
Yeah, we could form an ag.
Yeah, why don't we,
committee.
if you're receptive to that, I'd like to do that.
I know you've been asked to pursue, would you like to
Sure.
help lead that effort?
Sure.
And I know a few of our board members aren't here, but we could have 4 people people on the committee, so.
Yeah. I could pull in teachers and staff and, just a brainstorming conversation about, working towards an idea of that nature.
Is there any other new business for the board? Alright, I'm gonna just put, even though it's uncontested now, so I remember when I was uncontested on the ballot, Mr. Hayden, said something, so I'm gonna put Brittany Simmons on the spot and just introduce her to the board. She's gonna be running uncontested as one of our Wantage candidates in November. So unless somebody runs a really good write-in campaign, she will be here for the next 3 years, starting in January. So we appreciate you coming to the meeting, and your husband, Fran, as well. And we're excited to have you on board, so you could listen firsthand to Mr. Dahl's rants.
I'm looking forward to it.
You don't really talk that much.
So red. Breathe, Mike, breathe.
I gotta get down to the beach.
If there's no other new business, I'll move on to audience remarks. Members of the audience are invited to make brief comments about items on this agenda and matters of interest to the district. Are there any audience remarks? Seeing none, we have no need for a second executive session, so I will look for a motion to adjourn, please. Thank you, Mrs. Dahl.
No, go ahead.
I'll second.
Thank you. So all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, have a great night, everybody, thank you.
Look at that, 8 o'clock.